Good afternoon. This is Susan, and this is Susan's Ramblings. I have a few things I want to address today. Mainly, this is apple season time, and many of you are making apple pie filling. Now, the other day, I believe it was yesterday, Martin's Misadventures, get that wrong all the time, is a YouTube creator with Ashley and Amy. And they were given some apples. And Ashley, they're preppers. They live in the mountains in an RV camp, in an RV camper, a small one. And they're low income, like most of us. So, she was given these apples. And to preserve them right away, she decided to make apple pie filling. And she did. She showed us how to do it. Except she used cornstarch. And she got some comments on using cornstarch. The problem is, I used the same recipe. And I've used it for years, for over 20 years. I got it from, not my grandmother. My grandmother was dead by the time I started canning. But I got it from my mother-in-law. And she got hers from her grandmother. And we've been making them for over 20 years. Now it's considered a rebel thing, because it has cornstarch in it. And you're supposed to use clear gel. Well, I just looked up clear gel on Amazon. First of all, low income, I can't afford the Prime, which is, I don't know how much a month anymore. And so I would have to have $25 in expenses for shipping, for free shipping. Or otherwise it doesn't pay. And the cheapest one I could find on Amazon was $13. That was for a small package. But if you look down in the description, it said cornstarch. So you know what? Clear gel is cornstarch. They just give it a different name. And that's all it is. So I'm going to keep on making my apple pie filling. In fact, I've got some in the process right now, because I found some apples that were cheap. And Ashley already made hers. So, a lot of things that are considered rebel canners right now are the way I was taught. I didn't have a pressure cooker when I started canning. This was 50 years ago, 55 years ago. The pressure canners they had at that time were so heavy, and I mean they were heavy, that it would take a strong man, a very strong man, and a very strong woman to lift them up onto the stove. Besides, they weren't too reliable at that time either. My mother got burned twice using pressure cookers. So you can see I was very, very leery of using a pressure cooker. And I wasn't able to, I told my mother-in-law I wasn't able to can, because I couldn't use a pressure cooker. And she laughed at me. And she said, Susan, use a water bath canner. Only you have, instead of just 75 minutes or 90 minutes to build up the pressure, and then your 75 or 90 minutes or whatever it was, she says you have to boil it for 3 hours. Oh boy. But you know, that was better than a pressure cooker. And I definitely could not afford a pressure cooker at that time. I can't afford one now. But I got one. I got a small one. But anyway, I did that water bath canning up until 5 years ago. Even though they were telling me it was unsafe. You know what? I raised my family. I raised my mother-in-law raised her family. And she was raised on that. and you were still here. In fact, in Europe, they don't have pressure canners. They still water bath everything. The Amish still water bath everything. So, maybe we're not rebel canners after all. And maybe, just maybe, you're going to have to think outside of the box these next few years. Because I have a feeling it's not going to get any easier. And it's probably going to get harder. And these recipes that were passed down to us that are considered unsafe now, or rebel canning, were all that were available to them during the Depression and during the war times. And those of us in America are spoiled, very spoiled. We eat 3 full meals a day, and I mean full. And that's why most of us are obese, because we eat too much. Cut back. You're going to have to cut back, because you're not going to be able to afford everything. And those things that we consider necessary now are usually not necessary. They're wants. You're going to have to learn to cook from scratch. You're going to have to learn to take these basic ingredients and make a meal out of them for your family. That's the way it's going to be. We won't be able to walk into a store and buy these frozen meals, these complete meals. If they're even available, they'll be priced so far out of our reach that only the wealthy are going to be able to buy them. And maybe that's their point. Just my opinion on that one. So, people, don't criticize us. If you haven't got anything good to say, don't say anything at all. We know what we're doing. We've done it for years. And just because you don't approve of it, or just because supposedly the government doesn't approve of it, doesn't mean that it's not good for you, that it's unsafe. Learn to bake from scratch. Get your basic ingredients. In fact, it might come down to where we're going to have to make our own pasta, our own noodles. Did you ever think of that? Most of you can't even make your own bread. Most of you can't subsist on the basic ingredients and making a meal. I'm not saying those, my subscribers, are that way. Most of them, I believe, are generally scratch cookers, or at least willing to learn. But I'm going to guess that 80 to 90% of the population in America have no idea on what to do or how to do it. And that's a sad commentary. The long ways from I went through 50 years ago. You make do. You make do with what you have. And if all you've got is cornstarch, and you can't afford the clear gel, well, guess what? Like I said, the description said cornstarch. Have a great day. God bless.